Hello, friends. My name is David Trotter. I'm the founder and publisher of Awaken Magazine, and I want to welcome you to our weekly Rise and Shine live stream. We host this every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time, 12 noon Eastern, and have an opportunity to hear from several executive contributors from Awaken Magazine. And so I'm so excited to have with us today Shelly Poovey, Michelle Wollaston, and Tina Friday. You guys, welcome. Yay.
Thank you.
Morning.
Yeah. And so today, our topic is collaborating with spirit, how we channel, listen, and receive guidance. And so we tackle a unique topic that I believe that many of us are interested in and processing and trying to grow and learn each week. And so you can find those on our YouTube channel under a Rise and Shine live stream playlist. And so we're just have a conversation today, and you'll get a chance to get to know each of these incredible leaders and hear from them in terms of some of the wisdom and stories that they'll be sharing. So if we could just begin by having an opportunity for you to introduce yourself briefly and share how you are serving the world. So Shelly, would you mind going first?
Sure. Hi, I'm Shelly Poovey. I'm in New York City and I am a health and peak performance coach. I primarily work with developing business intuition for conscious entrepreneurs, busy professionals. I particularly work with people who are energy healers and in the helping professions, but not exclusively, to help develop business intuition to feel less overwhelm and stress and being able to be in flow and alignment with greater ease.
Wonderful. And Shelly, you are in New York, but you work with people anywhere in the world, right?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Good. And if you guys could each share, as Shelly did, where you're connecting from, that's always fun for people to hear. Michelle, tell us how you're serving the world.
Hi, David. I'm actually in Australia, so it's very early in the morning here at the moment. I'm a consciousness and transformation coach, author, and a podcast host now. I primarily work with women in their midlife who feel as if they've disappeared within the noise of that life because we are partners, mothers, parents, daughters, carers, workers, all of those things that make us what we are. And I help those women lower the noise of their lives so that they can rehear themselves and they can come back home to where they truly want to be.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Michelle. I really appreciate you being here at 2 a.m. All of these time slots that I choose for these events are kind of a little bit more US based. So,
It's all good.
all right. If we see you nodding off, I'll just yell at you. Michelle, come back. Tina, tell us about yourself, where you're connecting from, and how you serve the world.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Tina. I am connecting from San Diego, but I am an original East Coaster, so nice to meet you, Shelly. So I work as a spiritual intuitive. I'm also a nurse, so I work doing mobile IVs, so I provide holistic services. And my big thing now is I'm serving as an empath coach. There are so many people like myself out there that feel lost and confused and unsupported. And I know my journey was very scary. So I'm here to just support others like me.
Wonderful. Great to have you with us. Well, as I mentioned today, we're talking about collaborating with spirit. And that can mean a lot of different things to different people. So I'm curious how you would define that phrase, that concept, collaborating with spirit. What does that mean to you? So, Shelly, would you mind getting us started?
Sure. What does that mean, collaborating with spirit? For me personally, so not necessarily speaking to how I work with clients, because I think it's just such an individual, unique thing. But for me personally, the idea of collaborating with spirit is that I'm a creator. I'm here in connection with spirit rather than it being something outside of me. And I've worked a lot with this idea of how to have harmony between our healthy ego, what we might call our higher self, and then what we might call kind of the universal consciousness or universal life force that we're all connected with. And so to me, when I'm working with trying to create something or asking for guidance or direction, I try to work with this idea of harmony between those kind of three aspects that make up my wholeness. And that's worked really well for me to see that it's flowing through me, it's working with me. And if there's blind spots that I'm experiencing or ways that I'm approaching what I want to create or the world that's not serving me, it's a collaboration with the greater forces working through me to help me illuminate those blind spots and see with clarity the right direction for me to be taking, or maybe why certain things that I'm trying to do are maybe blocked or, not coming to the outcomes that I would hope.
All right. And Michelle, what are your thoughts on what does it mean to, well, I guess, how would you define collaborating with spirit? And of course, I should have probably said this in the beginning because so many of us use that a different term, whether it's spirit, source, consciousness, God, the divine. Each one of those has kind of a different texture to it. But when you hear that phrase, collaborating with spirit, what does that mean to you?
It's interesting for me because I've been collaborating with spirit ever since I was a teenager. My first experiences of hearing and speaking with spirit were through channeling mediums when my father used to hold circle when I was only 13 or 14. So I think now that I really appreciate that whole space much better and intuitively I'm much stronger. Collaborating with spirit for me is just understanding what I'm feeling and what I'm sensing and what I'm receiving mentally is from spirit. And I get that in all sorts of ways. I get it through synchronicities, random downloads. It's a constant for me all day, every day. And I think because I've learned to accept that and work with that intuitive guidance naturally all the time, that more often than not, I think spirit are collaborating with me more than the other way around. But that, to me, that's what it is. And when I'm working with people, I'm receiving that intuitive download, which effectively is me connecting to their higher selves and their spiritual people. So it's sort of like a joint effort.
Thank you. Tina, how would you define or describe collaborating with spirit if somebody had not maybe heard that phrase before?
I would say it's really about listening to the guidance that's given and paying attention to the signs that you see that are presented to you. For me, for a very, very, very long time, I ignored everything and shut it off, and it definitely reflected in my outside world. But since now I finally accepted myself for who I am and then stepping into myself fully, my life has changed significantly when I listen to the advice and the guidance that's given.
All right. I want to hear about a moment in time where you clearly would say, wow, this was guidance from spirit. This was guidance from maybe angels, or I kind of want to expand beyond just like spirit, God, divine, source, because there are other entities that we may receive this messaging or collaboration with. Angels, ascended masters, maybe even galactic beings. Is there a time in your life where you would say, yep, I totally sense that was without a doubt a powerful moment when I received guidance from something outside of myself? Tina, is there something that comes to your mind?
I will say there's actually multiple. I'll give you one example where I had a very, very intense gut feeling about a friend. And I had gone to her house and knocked on the door seconds before she was about to take her own life. Sorry, it still kind of gets me a little bit. Situations like this have happened to me not once, not twice, but 3 times. And even at that time, I was still questioning myself. It wasn't until I had my own dark night of the soul and contemplated taking my own life that I got a message from my angels. And it was a ringing in my ear while I was sitting in the bathtub. And it was in that moment where I had this intense inner knowing something needed to change, because I was put on this earth for a reason and I needed to keep pushing through the pain. And that I did.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for
That's an
sharing that.
intense story. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah. Shelly, how about for you? Is there a particular, I think for a lot of us, we have multiple experiences, right? But if there's one that comes to mind, anything for you?
Similar to Tina, I was just sitting here thinking, well, gosh, which one could I share? Because there's been a lot. And I think for me, my relationship to kind of spiritual guidance, I work a lot with sovereignty practices. So there's a lot of working with the communication through initiation to, let's say, Archangel Michael comes in. It's here, I'm here to initiate you to some of these gifts. What the way that I work, I'm going to help you kind of wield these powers for yourself. So what that, just similar to that first question you had about collaboration with spirit, it's like we're working together. And I remember I had a visitation from what we might call an alien. I mean, at the time, the way it showed itself to me, I would have described it, the way I would have described it is how we typically would describe an alien. And it was multiple visitations. I meditated on it a lot and communicated a lot with what is this? Why are you here? What are we doing? Because it was scary. It was really early on when my gifts were kind of expanding. And I got this great teaching from this, I'll call it a being, but it said, time is an illusion. And I'm a reflection of a version of you that has mastered time and time travel. And it helped me connect with future selves, past selves. And then I started, at that point in my life, I started to remember different times in my childhood when something sort of whisked in, almost like grace, to come in and help lift me up out of maybe some challenging circumstances. And in that moment, I realized that it was sort of like my future self working through time. And it has helped me feel more connected to the sense that we're all interconnected. All beings are interconnected and working with each other in a sort of a constructive way.
Amazing. Thank you, Shelly. Michelle, is there an instance, one of the many that you might be able to share with us of where you were like, okay, yeah, this is coming in from spirit, angels, ascended masters, galactic beings. They're seeking to collaborate with me.
Well, in hindsight, it's easy to recognize it now. And I find that a lot of the spirit guidance that you receive, it's when you think back on it, you go, that was divinely timed. I know that definitely was orchestrated on purpose. Probably the one that was the thing that changed my life the most was in 2015. And I had been in a long-term relationship at that point for about 20 something years, one which had not been serving my highest good for a long time, but I wasn't moving. So spirit clearly had to get my attention. And on social media, as we do, I just had this random ad come up about a local mediumship event, which I love. Who doesn't love going and seeing a medium? And I went along with a friend. She had a lucky door prize. Well, out of all the people in the room, my girlfriend won the lucky door prize, which was a free reading with her. So I asked to tag along and if she would give me a free reading. And of course, during that free reading, which spirit would know was in a context that I trusted and understood, that was when she allowed my spirit guides to come through and say, you're not speaking your truth. You need to move. And that is kind of how spirit works with me. And they knew that would be the one thing that would stop me and make me go, oh, okay, yes. And that moment really is what allowed me to be where I am now.
Amazing. As I'm hearing you share your stories and us process this, one of the things that is standing out to me are kind of these different elements. Like, number one, there's got to be an ability to hear an ability to recognize that something is coming through. Now, for a lot of people that I hear their stories, sometimes it's just coming through so strong, so loud, so clear that it's obvious. Like you said, Michelle, this you're standing in front of someone who's giving you a reading and they're, right, sharing this information. There, I guess you could deny it though. Like you could be in a space to go, that person's crazy. Like I'm fine, So it's like the willingness to hear, but also the ability to not just hear it, but then somehow assimilate it. Like, can you guys process that with me for a moment? Like the different elements that need to be in place, whether it's for yourself or the clients that you work with. Um, because some of us are not ready to hear, and yet maybe spirit is trying to collaborate with us. Is this making sense? Like the different elements that are required in order to collaborate with spirit. Tina, what are your thoughts on that as you're working with clients? Like, how do you help them be ready to hear and recognize and assimilate this information?
I always say you have to start by healing your trauma, because the trauma essentially serves as almost like a barrier for spirit. So if we were to have like a window and had layers of dirt on it, every single layer of trauma serves as almost a layer of dirt. So you start cleaning them off, and then your connection starts to become clearer. And it's also a matter of learning how you feel in your body. Because we're all built differently in bodies. So I will get the chill, I'll get a hot and cold flash if somebody's loved one is trying to come through. Guardian angels love they love the ringing in the ear, even when I'm driving on the highway. Spirit guides, I get an interesting smell. But it took me a couple years to understand what my process was. And I think it depends on the person and what works for you.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, Shelly? How to be ready to listen, distinguish, is this is this my intuition? Is it spirit, or am I just making this up?
Yeah. Well, it's such a great question, and if we had many hours, I have so many thoughts on this, but I'll keep it simple. The biggest thing I hear with people is they're afraid. It's like, the message that comes through is maybe something that they don't want to hear, that's confronting, that's challenging. I've had that many times. I wrote an article about it in the Awaken magazine about when you get guidance that you don't want to hear. I got some really clear guidance that I needed to explore the pattern of narcissism. And that really pushed all of my buttons, because I don't like labels. I am somebody who feels like, that's, toxic and all sorts of things. So the simplest thing that I work with for myself when I'm getting something that's kind of coming in harsh, and maybe challenges my sense of who I am or what I think is right, is to say, can I hear this? Can you say this again to me in a way that I can hear it? Can you bring this to me in a way that I can receive it? Can you bring this nicer? And that typically works, because I do think it's a conversation. And you're not, I think that's the biggest thing that people get scared of intuition is the pressure of, what do I do with this? Like it's a directive or an obligation. And to say, this is a conversation and it's just information, and how do you want to receive it and work with it? So if it's coming in really in a challenging way, can you say this to me in another, just like you would with a person, right? If you were having a challenging conversation with somebody that you care about, okay, I want to hear what you have to say, but can you say that a little bit differently? Can you help me understand?
Some people would say, can you tell it to me like I'm a kindergartner? I need it that
Yes.
simple.
Yes.
Maybe draw me a picture. Michelle, how about for you? How do you distinguish between, say, intuition, imagination, and, okay, this is actually like a divine message?
I think I've just learned over time, I don't really differentiate between intuition and guidance, because in my experience, your intuition is always there to guide you in some way or other. For me, it truly does. That classic thing where we say, I just had a gut feeling. It's just that feeling that you get that something doesn't feel right. The energy of the room just is not what you think it should be. When you meet someone, there's just that something, you can't quite put your finger on it. And sometimes that initial little nudge comes more to light to you, I think, the more you get exposed to the situation. And that's when it all starts to fall into place a little bit more strongly. I never doubt it. So it is really difficult to explain to people who have not kind of put two and two together for themselves. But when I'm working with other people, I truly believe that usually the person comes to you when they're at that point when they're ready. And if you're just dealing with someone in the street and you are hearing a story and you feel as if you need to support them, you normally can get a fairly quick sense straight away at whether or not they're ready. And I suppose it's just experience that teaches you whether to just drop a seed and let that sort of sit and permeate, or whether to keep pushing through, depending on the response you get from that person. To work, there's so much to work out, because you have to work out, one, what their belief system is. Do they look at you and think you're crazy if you say, well, I have a feeling? So I think every situation's different, but I think within yourself, it's just that inner knowing.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious about, you said, and I don't want to put words in your mouth in terms of like all of life, but you did say, I don't ever question. Like, I just don't question it. I don't, I just know it to be the case. And so I'm curious about the role of trust, like trusting spirit, trusting your own intuition, and a sense of surrender. Like, how does that work for you, Michelle? And I want to hear from the others of you as well. Like, when you think about, do you have a sense of trust in this process? How do you think about that?
I've had it with me for such a long time. I think because I was exposed to this part of our reality from such a young age.
Mm-hmm.
And in such a safe environment, because it was brought to me through my father. So I never doubted him. He was my father. So why would I sort of stop to think that what I was seeing and hearing wasn't authentic?
So before you continue, people who have not listened to your interview on Awaken Magazine, maybe just very briefly tell us the environment that you grew up in, because it's a very unique environment.
Well, my father, and it would have been about his midlife, had a health crisis. And I mean, I'm going back to the very early 80s, where this sort of conversation probably would not have taken place at a public forum. He sought out alternative practitioners back then to try to heal what was happening with him. And through that process, they encouraged him to seek other information, which he did. And my father was a Scorpio, so if you're going to deep dive, he's the nature to do it. And through that process, he began delving into energy healing, and then that meant that he was meeting other people, and many of them were psychic mediums. And then as the years went on, he decided that he would have what's generally called circles. So for people who are not aware of what that could be, it's really just a group of people sitting usually in a circle, meditating and calling in energy. And in my situation, we had mediums who were channeling spirit. So I was hearing all sorts of information back when I probably was way younger than most people would experience it. And as I said, it was a very safe environment. Those people who he engaged with were also our friends, and we knew them very well. So I just always trusted. It was something that was always embedded in me, and those foundational practices and those universal laws was just something I learnt through osmosis, I think. So for me, I've never not trusted. I may not have always heard it correctly or understood what it was, but experience has allowed me to really tune into that and understand what I'm hearing is divine, or what I'm hearing is just me making it up in my brain.
Yeah, wonderful. How about you, Tina? What role does trust and surrender play in this process of collaborating with spirit for you?
Okay. I always say trusting that very first initial gut instinct, because when we start to get into, I call it like the monkey mind, once you start to get into your logical brain, those cognitive distortions come in and they kind of hijack the information that you've been receiving. And that causes us to start questioning ourselves. And for me, I've questioned my own sanity. I've sent myself for CAT scans, psyche valves. Like I was convinced I was losing my mind. Um, there was something else I wanted to say, but it went out the other way.
No worries, no worries. Just wondering about the role of trust and surrender in the process of hearing these things.
Got that. Okay. So, and as far as surrender, that was something that took a lot of work for me to do. A spirit will never give anybody information that is not for their higher good.
Mhm.
Um, it was really a matter of me saying, is this correct? Because this is not what I want to hear at the moment. Like, I really don't want to hear this, but I just needed to really just let go and stop trying to control everything. And once I started doing that, the information's not always what I want, but it's always what I need to hear. And I feel like
Mhm.
that goes across the board for so many people, but it's a process, it's a process.
Mhm. How about you, Shelley? What role does trust and surrender play for you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm coming from a really different kind of background, I think, than the other speakers. I was just thinking about that. For me, I have a neuroscience understanding of intuition, which is about the feedback loops, the way the mind is filtering information and how our conscious mind is interpreting frequency and vibration and turning it into thoughts and information. And I have a lot of experiences of people giving me guidance or giving me, kind of coming up to me and giving me intuitive readings and things like that, even without my permission or even with, and just getting a lot of wrong information.
Mm.
Um, so I've thought about this a lot, and I think it's true what, I would say that ultimately what Michelle and Tina are saying, I think is ultimately true, that I'm never given anything that isn't right for me. The guidance, the intuitive guidance is always there, but it's also what do you make of the information? It's information, and how do you interpret it? And I think self-reflection and mindfulness play an important role for me in, alchemizing, is what I like to say, alchemizing energy so that my filters are tuned to be able to take that information in and work with it in a constructive way. So I was just thinking about this. I had an experience with someone. I've had the privilege of working with many gifted psychics, and I would say all of them have given me information that was accurate, but also wrong. I don't know how else to say that. So things that I had absorbed, maybe projections, people who had kind of accused me of things that were false, those things kind of got stuck in my energy. And when people were reading it, they would say to me, I had someone say to me, "You're going to be on a reality TV show," or "Oh, you're meant to move to Asheville," and different things like that. That when I sat with it later and just rather than taking it at face value and just saying, "Well, that person is a gifted psychic, so I'm just going to believe at face value," which might have steered me in a wrong direction. I sat with that information. I thought, what's going on here? Like, this doesn't resonate for me at my core, as I don't think I really want to move to Asheville, or I don't really see myself on a reality TV show. And I thought about different kind of toxic dynamics that I've been in. I was like, oh yeah, that really horrible thing happened when someone was trying to pressure me to move to Asheville, or this really horrible toxic dynamic that I had with this person who actually ended up on, on a reality show. It's like their energy kind of just got kind of stuck in my field. And so then I learned, oh, that taught me something, that I'm, you know, magnetizing these projections, and it guided me to how I could kind of take care of my energy in different ways, or understand maybe blocks that I had. And that's made a huge difference for me in strengthening my own sense of inner intuition and how to work with information when it comes through.
That's super helpful. That brings me my thoughts to an interaction that I had at Mandy and I have a studio here in Costa Mesa called Behind the Lids, and so there's breathwork and meditation and all kinds of experiences. We were leading this Lionsgate Activate Your Abundance event the other night, and this woman comes up to me afterwards and talked about, I see something in your throat chakra, and I think that needs to be cleared, and would you mind if I did it? And I thought, okay, I'm open to that. And so we sat there outside, and she did her experience, and she talked about something happened when I was like 2 years old or something like that. Maybe it was 4, I can't remember. And it was interesting because afterwards she said, do you feel any different? And I go, well, I don't really feel any different, but I'm open to the transformation. I'm open to whatever the divine would have for me. And I love what you said there, Shelly. Is I think I approach so many of these things, especially when other people are bringing it my way, to go, I'm open to how I would experience a transformation, but I have a filter up, and my filter is not only my own filter, but people in my life that I can turn to process these things with, to go, help me discern. Do you sense that? Do you sense, I talked to some other people who were like, geez, your throat chakra is the last thing that I think is blocked in your life. I'm like, okay, cool. So then processing, I guess, in community. So I guess I would ask you guys, as you think about collaborating with spirit, whether it's your personal connection with the divine or other people bringing you messages, what role does community play in the process of all of that? Michelle, do you have any thoughts on that?
What role does community play? I suppose it depends on what you class as community. If
Anybody
I'm
in
with,
your life, do you have people that you turn to help process these things with? Or do you feel like it's more of like me and God and we're good, like we're figuring it out alone? Does that, I don't know.
I think now, not so much. Back, as I said, back in those days, in the like 2015, 16 days where I was working through me moving, yes, I lent very heavily on my spiritual mentors and listening to other people in the space, reading lots of books. I absorbed Abraham Hicks and all that stuff to kind of bring myself back into that energetic space. Now, probably not so much. I probably just rely on myself more because I've learnt what it feels like. I've learnt what I'm hearing is what I need to listen to, or I just go, yeah, okay, and sort of like diss it. But if it's something I need to listen to, it'll come back around again. Spirit have a habit of smacking you a little bit if you don't hear it the first time. So yeah, I think everybody just comes to it depending on their own experience and all of the things that underpin your own belief system as to how you read a situation or read what you've been given plays into it a lot.
Mhm. Yeah, Tina or Shelly, either of you have thoughts on that? The role of friends, family, community in your life and helping you discern what you're hearing and how to assimilate or take action?
For me, I keep to myself. The outside world isn't very understanding. The paradigm is shifting slowly. So I have learned to just keep my circle very, very small, but I keep people who understand me, who are a lot like me in some capacity. And then, in the very, very beginning, and I want to publicly thank my mentor, Armand Ejidi. He was the reason I am where I am today. So I'm forever grateful for that.
That's great. Shelly, any thoughts from you?
Gosh, I definitely, at this point, like I said before, I work a lot with sovereignty. And I was in one of my sort of Kundalini awakenings, I was gifted a tool. And I use this tool a lot for my own grounding and discernment, and to sort of work through sort of the veil of illusion that we all live in, the veil where we're kind of living in our projections, in our collective unconscious stuff. But at the same time, I think community is so important because the witnessing of each other brings this sort of third force, I think, to our experience of ourselves through our mirroring with each other. And I learn a lot. I've learned the most from the worst experiences that I've had, right? I've had amazing mentors, amazing teachers. I've spent time with some wonderful people, and also not so great communities. I've learned from all of that, and I don't think I would be able to work with the tools and feel as confident as I do if I hadn't had that.
What are some daily practices or weekly or monthly practices that you guys have integrated into your life to be able to listen, to discern, to integrate, to live out whatever these messages are that are coming through for you? Are there things that you do, and maybe they're just so natural to you now that you're like, oh, I guess that's a practice. It's so integrated into my life. It's just kind of what I do to help you in collaborating with spirit. Anything come to your mind, Tina?
I always make it a point to put fresh flowers once a week. I put just one, usually high vibration. That, and I cleanse with Florida water in the shower in the mornings, like religious. That has been my practice. The spiritual debris that does not belong to me, and allows my cut out, but it allows my connection to open up to spirit by clearing energetic debris that usually does not belong to me.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I heard that because we had a little bit of interruption. So one, flowers every Sunday, whether it's one flower or something, and then Florida water. Are you spritzing it, or like you're bathing in it in the shower, like the whole bottle?
I do it in the shower because I dump it over my head because it's a very powerful smell.
It does.
So
it's very
I do
powerful,
that.
yeah.
And water is also very, very cleansing. Like, it doesn't only just cleanse the body, it cleanses the spirit. So it's really a way for me to just get rid of any spiritual debris that does not belong to me. And it just makes my connection a heck of a lot better. And I just go with it.
Wonderful. Tell me about a flower or flowers. I love flowers so much. There was a point in my life many years ago where I was considering going to school to arrange flowers. I just love flowers. What is it about flowers for you that is so helpful in this process?
Sure. Everything on earth carries a vibration. I mean, it's science. Roses are the highest vibrating flower on earth. And that's why, like, the Virgin, it's connected to the Virgin Mary, same concept. But I especially like roses, especially on the days where I'm reading, because I feel like it really brings you closer to source, God, whatever you want to call your higher power. But by having high vibrating things in your area, it definitely makes that connection a lot clearer. And for me, it's very, very loud sometimes.
Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. At first, I swear, it's so funny with these connections, what you can hear. I swear I thought you said, I love having them in the room on the days that I'm breeding. And I thought, is she breeding dogs over there? What's going on? It's like, and then my brain was like, oh, no. She said reading. Okay, reading. Okay. Like, maybe she's got a breeding, like dog breeding, business or something on the side. Or not. Roses and dog breeding. That's what I'm all about. Michelle, how about for you? What are some practices that come to your mind that would help us connect?
Oh, I've probably played with them all. Now, I definitely try to meditate every morning just to sort of ground myself and open to anything that might come through. I often will find myself just at different times through the day, just sitting and being present and just looking around me and remembering where I am. I'm really big on gratitude and the embodiment of gratitude. It's not about sitting down and writing a tick list. It's around really looking at what you're experiencing, what's happened to you, what's possibly going to still happen to you in the future, and really feeling into that energy and vibration of gratitude because it's so high. And by being able to do that, it elevates your alignment. It improves your ability to manifest what you desire or what's sitting there waiting for you to come in. And even when we just go back to those basic signs and synchronicities, like I'm a very practical person, so spirit is never going to do fluff with me because they just know I'll go, no, forget it. I tend to get very tangible signs like numbers. Numbers is probably a thing for me. I had an experience last week where somebody had put up on their Facebook post that they'd been to the petrol station and the Bowser came up with 7777. And I just looked at that and went, oh, I wonder if they realise what that means. It wasn't for them. That whole day, I just kept getting sevens everywhere I looked, number plates, billboards. I had 777 deleted messages in my email inbox. So I get a lot of acknowledgement like that. And I think if you're someone who's receiving those tangible signs, like even when you're first starting out and you're getting the butterflies and the feathers and all of those initial things that spirit tend to give you when you're going through those early stages, always acknowledge that you've got them and let spirit know that you're seeing them, because the more you do that, the more you get. So it's just that everyday mindfulness of what's happening around you, I think.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Shelly, how about you? Some practices that come to your mind cultivating this connection?
Yeah, two things. I think starting the day with some kind of an intention, and that can be one that you set yourself or one that you ask for. So a little meditation, you can ask for an intention, and it's fun to play it both ways. And an intention is like a word, right? Like peace or fun, and then just see what shows up. When you work with curiosity and optimism and mindfulness, you sort of open the intuitive channels for receiving and being more open to that conversation. And then the other practice I do is working with this embodiment of your unique energy signature. Every single person is a unique expression of the divine, of source. Even if you believe in reincarnation and past lives, you're only ever going to be this version of that spirit once in this lifetime. So affirming that unique signature in my body, in my cells, in my DNA, and my energy centers to bring that frequency into coherence across all the timelines and the time frames and organize my ability to experience things and receive intuition and insight with clarity through that signature. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. We mentioned this just briefly earlier, Shelly, you did, about perhaps being nervous about negative information or difficult information. Maybe negative is not the right term. Difficult, challenging information. Um, it's one of the reasons why I personally do not like going to a psychic. This is like, yeah, I just don't want to hear if you're going to bring me some. I also don't want it to be your own perception, like you said, Shelly, of something kind of wacky that they're picking up on my field. Um, uh, but I also might miss out on something by not being as open to some of those things. So if someone is maybe nervous about not opening up to, say, a psychic, but just opening up to spirit, like to dropping that wall, making it a little bit more permeable, right? That boundary to spirit. What encouragement would you give them to open up a bit more and be willing to engage with spirit, source, the divine, if they're nervous about that, anxious about what they might hear or receive? Tina, do you have any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Keep your vibration high. If you keep your vibration high, low vibrating entities, low vibrating anything can't get in. So it's a matter of keeping, for me, like keeping your body clean. Alcohol is a very low vibrating substance. I haven't touched it in 10 years. There's certain foods, everything carries a vibration. So it's a matter of like really taking care of yourself, not just physically, but emotionally, psychologically, in so many capacities. The higher your vibration is, the more positive information you're going to receive. If it's anything that's like, and it also depends on perception too, because everybody's perception of what's negative versus what is truth can be very different. But anything that's harmful will never, ever, ever come through that veil as long as you keep your vibration high. If it starts to get low, you're going to get things, and it's probably not coming from a good place.
Mhm,
Does that
mhm.
make sense?
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. Shelly, how about you? Somebody's a little nervous about opening their mind and heart up to connecting with spirit. Maybe they're a little newer on this journey and going, geez, I don't know. Maybe it's going to be challenging information. Maybe it's going to be dangerous in some way. What would you say?
I like to work with setting an intention and then letting the energy organize around that intention. So then the information that you're receiving is through that filter.
Mhm.
And um, I mention that because I see this with my coaching clients who will start to realize how powerful they are. They're starting to manifest things, and they'll say, this comes up a lot with my clients. They'll say inevitably, I can see that this is working. I know that I'm connected. And I remember a time in my life where maybe I was more open and something terrifying happened, and I just don't want that to happen again. So it's often coming from a place, sometimes in childhood, when
Mhm.
we're, more attuned to the subtle realm. And so then I say, well, you're a powerful creator and you can direct this energy in a way that is beneficial to you. So I work with intention setting with constructive manifestation. Let me hear the information through the lens of what I want to create and in a supportive way. And very much in the beginning, it can be scary. And so this is like a nice way to kind of organize the energy so that then as you're building confidence, you become more courageous at what you're ready to hear. And there's this interesting research that came out recently that said meditators have a higher capacity to hear bad news, to
Mhm.
digest the kind of terrifying information like in the news and things like that they have more ability to withstand that adversity. So I think it's like a muscle that you build. So start easy, start light, start in a way that feels like, dipping your toe in the water. And then the better it gets, the better it gets.
Mhm.
The more
Thank you.
confidence you get. Yeah.
Shelly, or Michelle, I should say. We've got a Shelly and a Michelle. Look at that. I don't know why I didn't put that together earlier. Michelle, what are your thoughts on this? How to encourage people to be open to what spirit might be saying to them?
I think I always come from a place where I don't ever assume what people know or don't know. So I think you have to be able to work out very quickly what the person's level of understanding is before you can go anywhere. I'm very passionate about making sure that anybody that wants to, as I call it, play in this space, understands the foundations. And if that means that you have to take somebody right back to the beginning and teach them to ground and cleanse and protect and meditate, that's what you have to do. I think because through teaching people those foundational everyday techniques, which then in as a holistic approach raise the vibration, I think a lot of what happens then comes to the person naturally. So they aren't as fearful if they can experience it. And then you're able to explain, well, that's happening because you're now doing this. And as I said before, it's so much of it as to how it's accepted rests on the person's own lived experience, whether they've come from a background where maybe they were overly religious, not religious at all, have never even experienced this. Somebody once told them a story about how they thought they were possessed or they had to. So there's so many dynamics at play
Mhm.
around what people will and won't accept. I think it's much easier today and much more acceptable today than what it was back when I first started to experience it all, 30, 35 years ago. But I just think going back to those foundations, teaching people how to manage their energy, how to raise their energy, how to understand when they're dipping in and out and what to do, very much around what you consume energetically, media, what you look at, what you read, what you hear. There's so many parts of that if you can teach people those foundations, I think the rest sort of just falls into line.
Great, thank you. Well, I would love to hear, and starting with you, Michelle, how people can work with you. We have heard you share a bit of your story, your wisdom, your perspective on collaborating with spirit. You talked about how you're working with women kind of in midlife. What are the ways that people can work with you, and how can they reach out and connect with you?
Well, they can visit me at my website, which is just michellewollaston.com. If they want to work with me one-on-one, they can just touch base for a session. And I use a number of diagnostic tools. I like to look at the current energy in people's lives. So I use the natal chart, the progressive moon. I look at your human design, because all of that energy is why you're feeling what you're feeling right now at this moment, and whether you're withdrawing or whether you're moving forward. So I work with people like that and have a session. And then I like to give people what I call a personal practice pathway to take away and just work at their own pace and come to it themselves. Or you can connect on my socials. I'm on Facebook and Instagram and all those usual places. If you just want to stalk me a little bit, you can find me there.
Wonderful. All right. And we'll put links to all of our guests' websites in the caption of these videos once it goes to replay. Tina, how can people work with you, and where can they reach out and connect with you?
Okay. Well, I am still stepping into this, coming public. Best way is honestly my Awaken magazine profile. All links to my social media and everything you need is on there.
Wonderful. We will link to that. And can people receive one-on-one readings with you, or what is the ways
Sorry.
that people can work with you?
Yes. So I do offer one-on-one readings. That's an intuitive reading where I usually connect with spirit guides and guardian angels, but loved ones always love to come through. So I never know what's going to happen, FYI. And I'm teaching intuitive development courses. It's going to be every other Saturday. And at the moment, it's free.
Wonderful. All right. We will link to your profile on Awaken Magazine and people connect with you. Shelly, tell us about how people can work with you. Remind us who you work with, how they can work with you, and where they can connect with you.
My website is the best way to find me, and that's bodyattune, BODYATTUNE.com, or my Awaken Magazine profile, where I have all my socials and my website. I do a lot of things. I do peak performance coaching, which to me is how do you live your best life? And that has a variety of applications. I have a 3-month peak performance coaching program for conscious entrepreneurs where we work with developing business intuition. Has a great impact on decision-making under uncertainty, and being able to make decisions that are aligned for you that may kind of be out of the box in terms of that traditional business model way of doing things. And then I offer personal sessions. I have a Reiki Master certification program, quite a few other programs that are listed on my site.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Shelly. All right. We will link to everyone's websites, of course, in the description of this video. Also want to encourage you, if you haven't already, to subscribe to Awaken Magazine. You can go to awakenmagazine.com/subscribe. We send out several emails each week that feature incredible interviews and articles that our executive contributors are participating in. So check that out at awakenmagazine.com/subscribe. Shelly, Michelle, Tina, thank you guys so much for sharing your story, your wisdom, your experiences. Really appreciate it. And special thanks to Michelle for being up in the middle of the night in Australia. It's so wonderful.
Go to bed now.
Oh, great. And those of you who are watching, whether it's live or via replay, we are here each Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 noon Eastern, for the Rise and Shine live stream. Different topic each week featuring several of our Awaken Magazine executive contributors. So feel free to join us. All right. You guys have a great day. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
All right.